The ending. Yeah, the ending. He reported him, right? Yeah.
Oh, can you not scroll so fast? Maybe the ending.
Oh no, here it is. What happens at the end? Yeah. Well, we all saw what happens.
So they explain. They said the ending. Explain the paragraph.
So he finally confronts the dad and has him arrested. JR returns to his family to get his life in order. He moves to Manhattan with his old friend Wesley, and the ending shows Uncle Charlie. Because remember, he said, when the cop said to him, "Sorry about your father," and he says he's not my dad. But I think to
Well, the
him,
dad was
his
never
real
around
father
anyway.
was Uncle Charlie, because he's the one who pretty much raised him.
Yeah.
And he also gave him the car because he kept saying how important a car is as part of growing up, completing his journey to manhood. And he drives away from home.
And most of the stories he wrote for that New York Times piece were people like the people from the bar.
Interestingly, like the dad doesn't have a name, right, in the movie. It's just being referred to as the voice. The voice
from the radio.
The radio voice. Yeah, so I think there's a significance.
Hey, that was the guy from The Purge.
Oh, The Purge, Max Martini. Actually, I never saw The Purge.
I like The Purge movies. They were fun.
Okay.
They're funny, hilarious. And the TV show is interesting. Well, the movies were hilarious. The TV show ended up being a bit more serious.
Yeah.
Because it's meant to be a horror show, but it ended up being hilarious.
The Purge.
You actually think that father's voice is actually quite hoarse. I don't know. Would be a nice radio voice, really.
It's a pretty good voice, I guess. But I think what this is trying to say here is, all his life is, the communication is only via radio voice. But at the end, he says here, symbolically, he tells the voice to stop talking so he doesn't want to listen to his dad anymore.
Yeah.
So the voice is no longer his presence in his life.
Well, he was quite obviously abusive.
Yeah, and so at the end, he reported him.
And he didn't even seem to hide it. He just did right in front of everyone.
Well, he didn't think that JR would be man enough to stand up to him. So
well, if he doesn't know him at all, like he actually didn't know him, he would.
Well,
because even though he's the father, he's not really a father figure.
He's not the father. He's never been in his life. Yeah.
So he's practically a stranger in a way, except being a voice on the radio. Practically a stranger because they don't know each other personally.
Yeah, and I think that's why in the movie we don't even hear his name, because he's like this distant figure who's just a voice.
And probably don't really want to read out the real one if they have the name.
Yeah, Sydney. This article. Also, in a way, abusive as well. Abusive in a different way.
But yeah, quite a slow movie.
Yeah, although slow but not boring though, because I kept it was quite, I mean, like, engaging for me.
I didn't really find it engaging or captivating.
Like it didn't make me want to sleep or anything. Yes, it's slow, but like it kept moving. The story kept moving.
I rarely fall asleep in films, or I've hardly ever. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but yeah. I usually watch the movies right at the end. But this
Mm.
one, I ended up losing a bit of focus because I didn't really find it as interesting.
Yeah. Interestingly, JR was asked to co-write autobiographies of other famous people like Andre Agassi. His autobiography, was co-written with JR. Nike's co-founder Phil Knight. Oh, so it was actually JR who wrote it because he's ghostwriter. Even Prince Harry chose JR to co-write his autobiography, which hasn't been released yet. Which will be released later this year. Prince Harry.
Harry, oh, okay.
Duke of Sussex.
He's not a prince anymore.
Oh,
Lost his title.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, this was before he lost his title because this was maybe a few weeks ago. This article. So currently, JR resides in the Bay Area so he's married now and he's got 2 children.
Google.
Oh, the real J.R. Maguire.
Yeah, the real JR.